Welcome back. All right, so another news video for all you fine people for your Wednesday before we get into the two games for tonight, which will be reviewed separately. There's enough time in between the two that I can do a video for one, then a video for the other, which saves me some time at the end of the night. It's not a lot, but it helps. So, news today: the Toronto Maple Leafs, who should be wearing something like this for the Heritage game, but they're not. Kyle Clifford has signed a 2-year extension with the Toronto Maple Leafs for $762,500 per season. That's the reported amount according to Cap Friendly. So Clifford likes being a Leaf. The Leafs want to keep him around. Dahlstrom also signs a 1-year contract extension with the Toronto Maple Leafs for league minimum. So this is about keeping your depth in the organization, of course, for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm sure we will be discussing their cap situation throughout the summer and beyond, but we won't have to worry about Clifford and Dahlstrom. So they'll be sticking around. Speaking of sticking around, Byron and Evans are returning tonight for the Montreal Canadiens. So they're going to be back in the lineup against the Vancouver Canucks. Should be an entertaining game tonight. I will say, as a Canuck fan, I'm really glad they traded Toffoli before this game. So that's one less thing that they have to be concerned with, although Montreal's playing very well. So yeah, Byron and Evans coming back is good news for Montreal and for their depth, of course. And then there's returns of another nature. So for Vegas, they're in Buffalo tomorrow. So today they're in Buffalo. They play tomorrow against Buffalo. So Eichel taking the ice in Buffalo. It's kind of weird seeing him in another jersey in Buffalo. And there's a lot of articles about some stuff about the Buffalo organization. I'll say this. He does say he doesn't feel any bitterness towards Buffalo. He doesn't understand why they stripped him of the captaincy when they did, but he seems to be kind of over it. And it makes some sense. Going to the Vegas Golden Knights will definitely help him feel better about things. Vegas is a team that's not shy about spending money. They're a team that's usually in the hunt. They're a team that there's always a lot of excitement and a lot of buzz around. So I'm sure he feels pretty good about things. You know, I mean, I could try to find like a car analogy, but I'll leave it at that. Basically, Eichel, I think he sees that he's in a better situation now. So why be bitter with Buffalo? Is he upset about things that happened? Probably on some level. He probably wasn't happy about the fact that he had to go somewhere else to get disc replacement and he had to wait as long as he did. But it's done. It's done. He's back. He's playing. He feels good. And Vegas has a pretty good shot at making the playoffs this year, and it'll be the first time he's ever been in the playoffs. So tomorrow night's game in Buffalo will be entertaining for that reason. Keep in mind there are 9 games starting at 4 o'clock tomorrow. So, yeah, I've changed up a couple of boards for that because that just gets to be a little bit much when you have 4 boards going at the same time. No, not this year. That's not happening to me this year. So yeah, Eichel saying he doesn't feel bitter about what's happened with Buffalo, and so I'll be interested to see tomorrow night whether or not there's any kind of pushing and shoving between him and former Sabres, or there's any chirping back and forth. I don't expect there to be, but you never know. Sometimes you watch a game where a guy's playing against his former teammates, and you're like, I don't think they liked him very much. So we'll see with Eichel. The Winnipeg Jets have placed Nathan Beaulieu on LTIR. They've recalled Ville Heinola. So for the Winnipeg Jets, who are teetering at the edge of relevance when it comes to the playoff hunt, they're going to need to get something from Ville Heinola. And Heinola has a lot of upside, so maybe during this recall we'll see that, and the Jets can end up going on a run out of it. Speaking of Western Canadian teams that need to go on a bit of a run, the Edmonton Oilers have placed Turris on LTIR. Cassian has been activated from LTIR. So Cassian coming back, Turris going on LTIR to offset that. And so that'll be interesting to see with the Oilers whether or not Cassian gives them a bit of a spark. He is an energy player. When that energy is properly utilized, he can be a useful guy. Sometimes that energy gets into parts of the game where you'd rather he wasn't focusing. But hey, Cassian's that kind of player. Good news for Sharks fans too. It looks like Erik Karlsson is returning to the lineup tomorrow for San Jose, which seems to be ahead of where we expected. Like, I remember reporting that they were saying in mid-March he'd get reevaluated. So the fact he's coming back now seems to put him well ahead of what was expected from him. But Karlsson wants to compete. He wants to get out on the ice. And until they're mathematically eliminated, I'm sure there's guys in the Sharks locker room that think they can go on a bit of a run too. The LA Kings, who are currently sitting in second spot in the Pacific, they're going to be tested now. Arvidsson is week to week with a lower body injury. Brendan Lemieux is also week to week, lower body injury for him as well. And Mikey Anderson's been placed on the IR with an upper body injury. So that is 2 forwards and a defenseman. Arvidsson's been part of the most dynamic line the team has. And I've really liked Mikey Anderson's play lately. I think he's been good. And of course, Lemieux, you get that sandpaper with him, a player that other teams really don't like playing against. So that will change the makeup of the LA Kings. We'll see how long those 3 players are out and how they absorb those losses. Speaking of losses, the St. Louis Blues have been losing games. Now they're losing Buchnevich. He likely won't play tomorrow. He took a high hit last night from Austin Watson against the Ottawa Senators, and so it looks like he won't play tomorrow, and that's as far as that goes. We don't know if he's going to miss more games than that, but without Buchnevich, it's going to hurt at a time where the Blues are kind of on a bit of a downswing. So it is that time of year, and maybe it's because of the squashed schedule, we're starting to see some teams struggling. But it is funny because teams don't want to talk about the schedule as being part of the problem. Like, for instance, the Flames. Last night after the loss against the Capitals, saying that we're tired. But a lot of teams are. And by the time we reach the playoffs, teams are going to be really exhausted. So we'll see whether or not the NHL, since the end of the season's on April 29th, do you give them an extra couple of days? Or do you say, yeah, we got to get the Stanley Cup awarded, so the playoffs will start on May 1st. It'll be interesting to see how they schedule out the playoffs and how merciless they end up being, right? I remember the other night, Kelly Rudy talking about how in the 80s you would have back-to-backs for games 1 and 2 and games 3 and 4, and only one day in between. And then you have a day off, game 5, day off, game 6, day off, game 7, and how brutal that was. And I remember when they started bringing in the extra days off, and I remember as a fan thinking, well, that kind of sucks because it's fun to have this rolling, and it feels like it's a sprint, and it kind of slowed it down. But from a player perspective, absolutely getting those extra days off, you can heal up a bit, and it probably makes for some better hockey, right? So for the Calgary Flames, Johnny Gaudreau took a hit at the end of last night's game from Tom Wilson. He's okay. He skated off. The team saying today he's fine. There's no concerns about whether or not he's going to be out. So dodged a bit of a bullet there. But yeah, Tom Wilson's a big guy. He hits pretty hard. And he kind of sort of ends people at times. This is what it looks like. Especially if it's a smaller opponent. It can look pretty rough. So Wilson hits Gaudreau, but Gaudreau's okay. And there you go. You guys are all caught up for tonight. So we have the 2 games tonight. Sorry, shadow at my feet. We have the 2 games tonight. We have 13 games tomorrow. So for tomorrow's review, I've got 2 boards that'll have 5 games on them each. I have not done a board with 5 games each on it in years. I'm going to say at least 2 years since I've done that because I found that 4 was kind of the sweet spot. 5 gets to be a little bit squashed, but I'll just have to, shorten up my notes a little bit. And when there's 13 games on, I'm not all that worried. But that way, then 10 games equals 2 boards rather than 3, and it just makes it a little easier for me to manage things in here. So after the move, you never know. The move should be in May at some point, which of course is playoff time, right? So awesome. All right. That being said, thank you guys so much for all your support. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.